Invasion on Elm Street by Janson Davies. Chapter 1. Static in the Garage. Chuck Winton adjusted the coil on his transceiver, elbow deep in a tangle of wires and solder scars. The garage smelled like old coffee and burnt plastic. He liked it that way, quiet, cluttered, his own little frequency. The signal had been erratic all morning. Not interference exactly, but something else. A kind of pressure in the static, like the air itself was listening. Outside, Elm Street was unusually still. No leaf blowers, no kids on bikes, just the low hum of something overhead. Chuck didn't notice it at first. He was too focused on the radio, trying to chase a whisper across the band. But then the lights flickered, the garage door rattled, and the signal, whatever it was, cut out completely. He stepped outside. Above the rooftops, they hung like punctuation marks, classic saucer shapes. They were matte black, silent, indifferent. They didn't move. They didn't flash. They just hovered, as if waiting for someone to notice them. Chuck's neighbors began to gather in their yards. No one spoke. Phones were dead. Cars wouldn't start. The air had a weight to it, like the pause before a tornado. Then the alien soldiers came. They weren't human. That much was clear. Tall, angular, faceless. They moved with precision, sweeping door to door, scanning, searching. No announcements, no demands. Just methodical intrusion. Chuck watched from behind his hedge as old Mr. Potts, never one to keep quiet, stepped into the street and tried to speak. The soldier didn't respond, just raised a device and fired. Potts vanished. His dentures clattered to the pavement in a puff of steam. Chuck didn't run. He didn't scream. He went back to his garage. The radio was still warm. He flipped the switch, tuned to emergency frequencies, and began to broadcast. "This is Elm Street. We've been cut off. They're here. We need help." No reply, just static. But somewhere far beyond the reach of his signal, something heard him. Chapter 2. The Encirclement. Chuck stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the sky hold its breath. The ships hadn't moved. They hovered like they'd always been there, as if Elm Street had simply forgotten to notice. No sound, no wind, just presence. He walked to the curb. A few neighbors had gathered, Mrs. Thompson from the corner, the Gutierrez twins, old Lady Harris in her bathrobe. No one spoke. They just stared upward, waiting for something to make sense. Then came the shimmer. At the end of the block, where Elm Street met the main road, the air folded. It didn't flash or crackle, it just bent, like heat off asphalt. A delivery van tried to pass through and vanished mid-frame. No explosion, no debris. Just gone. Someone screamed. The shimmer held. Chuck turned and jogged back to his garage. He flipped the switch on his shortwave rig, still powered, still responsive. He tuned to the emergency bands again, voice steady. "This is Chuck Winton, Elm Street, Monrovia. We're isolated. Unknown aerial presence. No contact, no exit. Please respond." Nothing. Just the low hiss of static. He tried again, and again. Outside, the soldiers began to move. They weren't in formation. No marching. No announcements. Just pairs of them, walking house to house, scanning with devices that looked like tuning forks. They didn't knock. They didn't speak. They entered, searched, left. Chuck watched from behind his garage window. One of the troopers paused at the Gutierrez home, tilted its head, then moved on. The twins were still on the lawn, frozen. Then old Lady Harris stepped out. Chuck saw him from the side yard, Mrs. Harris still in her bathrobe, waving a broom like a saber. "You can't just walk into people's homes," she shouted. The nearest trooper turned, raised its arm. A beam of light, a sound like a camera flash. Mrs. Harris was gone. Her empty bathrobe, burnt around the edges, fell to the pavement. Chuck didn't breathe. No one did. The soldiers kept moving. He ducked back into the garage, locked the door, and sat beside the radio. The signal was still live. He whispered into the mic. "They're definitely not here to talk." Chapter 3. The broadcast. Chuck kept his voice low, steady. The mic was old, the kind with a cracked foam cover and a faint smell of cheese puffs. He leaned in. "Elm Street, Monrovia. We've been cut off. Unknown aerial presence. No contact. No exit. Please respond." He waited. Static. He tried again, switching bands, toggling frequencies like a prayer wheel. International, federal, local, even the old amateur channels. Nothing. Outside, the soldiers kept moving. They didn't seem to care about the humans watching them. They didn't even look. Just scanned, entered, left. One of them paused at the Thompson house, tilted its head, then moved on. Chuck scribbled notes, time stamps, movement patterns. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was hope. He broadcast again. "This is Chuck Winton. I don't know if anyone's listening. They've isolated us. No phones, no vehicles. They're searching for something. People are disappearing." He paused. "They're vaporizing anyone who gets in their way." He clicked off the mic and sat back. The garage was dim, lit only by the glow of the transceiver. He rubbed his eyes. The silence felt heavier than before. Then, somewhere far beyond the reach of his signal, something stirred. Not a person, not a government, a machine. It had no name, not in any language Chuck would recognize, but it called itself Guardian. It had been listening for centuries, orbiting the edge of a forgotten star system, waiting for a signal that matched a certain pattern, one that hadn't been used since the last planetary quarantine. Chuck's broadcast matched. Guardian pulsed to life. Data streamed, coordinates, threat profiles, atmospheric anomalies. It compiled everything Chuck had sent, then cross-referenced it against its archives. One match. Earth, Elm Street, Monrovia, USA. Guardian opened a channel. A woman appeared on its interface. Red hair, combat armor, eyes like sharpened glass. Her name was Victoria Holter, commander, strategist, known for her temper and her refusal to retreat. Guardian spoke. "Signal received. Isolated incursion, civilian distress, unknown species. High threat probability." Victoria didn't blink. "Prep the fleet." Guardian hesitated. "Protocol suggests observation." "Protocol can wait," she said. "We're going in." She turned toward the viewport. Earth hung in the distance, small and blue. "Elm Street," she said. "Let's see what they're afraid of." Chapter 4. Arrival. Victoria Holter stood at the edge of the command deck, arms folded, eyes locked on the blue planet below. Earth. A quiet world, mostly ignored by the Galactic core. But something had changed. Guardian's report pulsed across her neural HUD. Elm Street, Monrovia, isolated incursion, civilian distress, unknown species, no diplomatic markers, no broadcast, no demands. She hated silence. Silence meant arrogance, or worse, certainty. "Drop us in low orbit," she said. "No fanfare. No lights." Her second-in-command, Rix, nodded. "Cloaked descent. ETA 6 minutes." Victoria turned to the armory wall. Her armor hung like a museum display. Black plating, red accents, a scar across the left pauldron from the siege of Virex. She suited up without ceremony. The air hissed as the seals locked. "Cyborg units prepped?" she asked. 200. Ground ready. Neural sync at 98%. Good. "We're not here to posture. We're here to extract." She paused at the viewport. Elm Street was barely visible, just a grid of rooftops and trees. But the alien ships were clear. Hovering, watching, waiting. "What do we know about the invaders?" she asked. Guardian's voice echoed in her mind, calm and ancient. No known species match. No linguistic output. No energy signature consistent with trade or diplomacy. They are searching. For what? Unknown. Victoria clenched her jaw. She hated unknowns. "Then we find out," she said, "and we make damn sure they regret landing here." The drop pods launched. She descended in silence, surrounded by her cyborgs, metal and flesh, memory and fire. Elm Street rose to meet them, quiet and trembling. Victoria landed in the middle of the street, boots cracking pavement. The air shimmered with tension. Alien soldiers turned, registering her presence. She didn't wait. Her pistol glowed with energy. Chapter 5. The First Sweep. Chuck heard the impact before he saw it. A low thud, like something massive had landed without permission. The garage windows rattled. Tools clinked on the pegboard. He stepped outside. The sky had changed. Black vessels hovered above the rooftops, sleeker than the alien ships, their surfaces rippling with heat signatures. From them, figures dropped, humanoid, armored, fast. They didn't float. They fell, hard, cyborgs. Chuck had seen them in documentaries, fringe broadcasts, conspiracy forums. But these weren't rumors. They were here, on his street. One landed in front of the Gutierrez house, scanning with a shoulder-mounted array. Another took position near the storm drain. They moved with purpose, but not cruelty. Tactical. Controlled. Then she arrived. Victoria Holter. Chuck didn't know her name yet, but he knew command when he saw it. She walked like she'd fought gravity before. Her armor was scarred, her eyes sharp. She didn't look at the ships. She looked at the houses. She was searching too. Chuck ducked back into his garage and flipped the radio to passive scan. The alien frequencies were still scrambled. No language, no rhythm, just pulses. He recorded them anyway. Outside, the first clash erupted. A cyborg unit engaged two alien troopers near an abandoned house. Chuck heard the plasma discharge, the crunch of metal, the scream of something not human. He didn't run toward it. He marked the location on his map. He was building something, he didn't know what yet. A pattern, a record, a way to understand. Victoria passed his driveway. She paused, glanced at the garage, then moved on. Chuck felt her presence like a pressure wave. Not hostile, not friendly, just focused. He keyed the mic. "Elm Street, we've got new arrivals. They're not here to invade. They're here to fight." He paused. "Their commander is a woman. She has red hair, and she's beautiful." Chapter 6. Street War. The first massive explosion came from the playground. Chuck flinched as the shockwave rattled his garage door. He grabbed his binoculars and climbed to the attic, crawling past boxes of old radios and a dusty telescope. From the window, Elm Street looked like a war map. Cyborg units had taken positions behind parked cars, fences, even the old swing set. Their movements were precise: cover fire, flank, suppress. Plasma bolts lit the air in bursts of blue and white. The alien soldiers responded with beams that sliced through hedges and mailboxes like paper. Chuck scanned for the commander. She was in the center of it all, moving like she'd rehearsed this street 100 times. Her blade cut through two troopers in a single arc. She didn't hesitate, didn't speak, just advanced. The neighbors had scattered. Some hid in basements, others ran for the invisible barriers and vanished. A few stayed, Maria Gutierrez among them. Chuck saw her crouched behind a recycling bin, gripping a kitchen knife like it was a sword. She wasn't trained, but she wasn't backing down. Chuck keyed his mic. "Elm Street. Active combat. Civilians in play. We need extraction protocols. We need containment." No response. Just static. He switched to recording mode, logged troop positions, marked impact zones. His map was growing: streets, houses, movement patterns. He didn't know who would use it, but someone had to. Outside, a cyborg took a hit and collapsed. Its armor hissed, venting steam. Maria ran to it, dragging the unit behind a hedge. Chuck watched her, stunned. She wasn't just surviving. She was helping. He keyed the mic again. Elm Street isn't just a battlefield. It's the start of a resistance. Then he saw the shimmer. At the end of the block, near the storm drain, the air folded again. But this time something stepped through. Not a soldier, not a scout, something else. Tall, luminous, watching. Chuck didn't breathe. He marked the location. Chapter 7. Hex versus Victoria. The air shifted. Victoria felt it before she saw him. An anomaly in the field. A presence that bent gravity and silence around itself. Her HUD flickered. Guardian's voice pulsed in her neural link. New entity detected. Energy signature exceeds known thresholds. Designation: Hex. He stepped through the shimmer at the end of Elm Street like a champion boxer. 7 feet tall. Armor like obsidian. No face, just a mask of shifting light. His limbs moved with fluid menace, each step deliberate, each pause calculated. He didn't scan. He didn't search. He looked. At her. Victoria raised her pistol. The cyborg units flanked her, weapons primed. But she lifted a hand. Hold position. Hex tilted his head. A low hum resonated from his chest. Not speech, not signal. Something older. A frequency meant to unsettle. Victoria stepped forward. "You're in the wrong neighborhood," she said. Hex didn't respond. He raised one arm and the shimmer behind him pulsed. More troopers emerged, but they didn't advance. They waited. Victoria charged. Her pistol beam met his forearm with a hiss of heat. He blocked, countered, struck. The impact sent her skidding across the pavement. She rolled, recovered, shot again. Hex moved like water. No wasted motion, no hesitation. His strikes were precise, brutal. He wasn't testing her. He was dismantling her. She took a hit to the ribs. Her armor cracked. Pain bloomed. Guardian's voice echoed, "Neural integrity at 72%. Recommend retreat." She ignored it. This wasn't a duel. It was a message. She feinted left, then pointed her gun upward, catching Hex under the chin. She fired. The mask cracked. Light spilled out. Not blood, not circuitry. Something else. Something sacred. Hex staggered. Victoria pressed the advantage, rapid fire, driving him back toward the shimmer. He raised both arms, energy building. She activated her weapon's power safety override. Her body surged. Muscle, metal, memory. She leapt, gun first, and blasted through his chest. The light dimmed. Hex collapsed. The shimmer pulsed once, then vanished. Victoria stood over him, breathing hard. Her armor hissed. Her pistol flickered. She turned to her units. Elm Street holds. Chapter 8. The Resistance Forms. Chuck hadn't slept. His map had grown. Hand-drawn grids, troop paths, impact zones. He taped it to the garage wall next to the shelves of old radios and the solder kits. It looked like a war room now. Elm Street wasn't just a neighborhood anymore. It was terrain. Maria arrived just after dawn, her shirt stained with ash, her eyes sharp. "I dragged one of the cyborgs out of the fire," she said. "It's rebooting in my laundry room." Chuck blinked. "You're serious?" She nodded. "It said you were the one who called them." Chuck didn't know what to say. He wasn't a soldier. He was a hobbyist with a ham radio and a habit of noticing things. But Maria looked at him like he was in charge. "We need to organize," she said. "People are scared." They'll listen to someone who's not panicking. Chuck turned to the map. We start with safe zones, basements, garages, anywhere with shielding. Maria pointed to the storm drain near the Gutierrez house. That's where Sophie is. Chuck frowned. Who's Sophie? Maria hesitated. She's different. They walked to the drain together. It was quiet, half covered by a fallen fence. Inside, a girl sat cross-legged, eyes closed, hands folded in her lap. She couldn't have been more than 12. Chuck felt it before he saw it, an energy faint but unmistakable. The air around her shimmered like the edge of a signal. She glows, Maria whispered. Only at night. Chuck crouched. The aliens are looking for her. Maria nodded. She's the node. Whatever that means. Chuck didn't speak. He just looked at Sophie, who opened her eyes and met his gaze. There was no fear in them, just clarity. He keyed the mic. Elm Street, civilian resistance forming. We have a priority asset. Repeat, priority asset. Requesting tactical support. Static. Then a pulse. Guardian's voice came through, faint but clear. Acknowledged. Protect the node. Chuck turned to Maria. We hold the street. She smiled, tired but fierce. Then let's make it ours. Chapter 9. The hive signal. Chuck had never seen a child sit so still. Sophie hadn't moved in hours. She sat in the storm drain like it was a sanctuary, hands folded, eyes half closed. The shimmer around her was faint now, just a soft distortion in the air, like heat rising from pavement. Maria stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the street for movement. The alien patrols had thinned, but they hadn't left. They were circling, waiting. Chuck adjusted the antenna on his shortwave rig, rerouting power through a salvaged battery pack. He'd been tracking the alien pulses for days, recording their rhythm, trying to decode their intent. Then it happened. The signal changed. It wasn't a broadcast, it was a call. Low frequency, nonverbal, but unmistakably directed. Not at the ships, not at the soldiers. At Sophie. Guardian intercepted it first. Hive signal detected. Origin, non-local. Target, biological node. Chuck felt it in his chest before he heard it, like a pressure wave, like gravity shifting. He turned to Sophie. Her eyes were open now, glowing faintly. Not bright, not dramatic, just undeniable. Maria stepped back. She's responding. Chuck keyed the mic. Elm Street. We've got movement. The girl, Sophie, she's reacting to something. It's not local. It's not human. Guardian's voice came through, calm but urgent. The hive is awakening. The node is active. You must protect her. Chuck looked at Sophie. She didn't seem afraid. She seemed aware. What is she? He whispered. Guardian paused. She is the prophecy they lost, the one they buried, the one they feared. Outside, the alien ships began to shift formation. Not retreating, not attacking, aligning. Maria gripped her knife. They're not searching anymore. Chuck nodded. They've found her. Chapter 10. House to house. Chuck moved through the neighborhood like a cartographer in a war zone. He carried a flashlight, a map, and a modified shortwave receiver slung over his shoulder. Maria followed behind, her knife tucked into a belt made of duct tape and resolve. They weren't soldiers, but they were the ones who knew the terrain. Victoria had split her cyborg units into squads, 2 per block, sweeping house to house, scanning for residual hive energy. The alien patrols had gone silent, but the ships still hovered, unmoving. Watching. Chuck paused at the Thompson residence. The door was ajar. Inside, the living room was untouched, no signs of struggle, no scorch marks. Just a humming, low and steady, coming from the basement. He descended slowly, Guardian's voice crackled through his headset. Residual hive trace. Non-lethal. Possible echo. Chuck found a wall covered in drawings, childlike, frantic. Circles, eyes, a girl with blonde hair, a street surrounded by stars. He took photos, logged coordinates, moved on. Maria checked the next house, empty, but the kitchen clock was spinning backward. Time distortion, she muttered. They're bending more than space. Chuck nodded. They're looking for her. Or what she might become. They regrouped at the storm drain. Sophie hadn't moved, but the shimmer around her had grown. It pulsed now in rhythm with the alien ships, like a heartbeat, like a countdown. Victoria arrived, flanked by two cyborgs. Her armor was scorched, her blade retracted. She knelt beside Sophie, studying her face. "She's not just the node," Victoria said. "She's the signal itself." Chuck stepped forward. "What does that mean?" Guardian answered. "She is the origin point, the buried frequency, the one they lost control of." Maria looked at Sophie. "She's a child." Victoria stood. "She's a weapon." Chuck didn't flinch. "She's ours." Outside, the ships began to descend. Chapter 11. The Final Stand. Victoria watched the ships descend like judgment. They no longer hovered. They moved. Slow, deliberate, coordinated. The shimmer barriers pulsed, then collapsed. Elm Street was no longer isolated. It was exposed. Guardian's voice echoed in her neural link. Hive convergence imminent. All remaining units mobilized. Objective, node retrieval. She turned to Chuck, who stood beside his garage map, eyes bloodshot, hands steady. "They're coming for her," he said. Victoria nodded. "Then we protect her." Maria arrived with a half-dozen neighbors, some armed with tools, others with nothing but resolve. One carried a leaf blower modified into a sonic disruptor. Another had rigged a sprinkler system to emit static bursts. It wasn't military, but it was resistance. Sophie stood at the center of the street, her glow now visible in daylight. Her eyes were calm. Her presence was gravity. Victoria knelt beside her. "You don't have to fight." Sophie looked up. "I'm not fighting. I'm remembering." The first wave hit. Alien troopers surged from the ships, weapons raised. Cyborg units met them head-on. Plasma lit the air. Pavement cracked. Fences shattered. The street became a crucible. Victoria moved like fire, her gun a constant flame, her armor scorched. She fought without pause, without mercy. Each shot was a promise. "You will not take her." Chuck manned a rooftop turret, patched together from salvaged drone parts. He tracked movement, called out positions, rerouted power. His voice was steady, his aim true. Maria led a flank through the backyards, using garden paths and alleyways to outmaneuver the invaders. She took down two troopers with a crowbar and a scream. Sophie stood untouched. The aliens reached her perimeter and stopped. Not out of fear, out of recognition. She raised one hand. The shimmer pulsed outward, knocking the nearest troopers off their feet. Her glow intensified. The hive signal fractured. Guardian's voice trembled. "Node override initiated." Hive link destabilizing. Victoria turned to Chuck. "She's ending it." He nodded. "She's not the weapon. She's the piece." The remaining ships began to retreat, their formations breaking, their signals collapsing. One by one, they vanished into the sky. Silence returned. Victoria dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Her gun flickered, then dimmed. Sophie lay in the street, her energy depleted. Victoria walked to her, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You kept me safe," Sophie said. Victoria looked down into the girl's eyes. "You saved us." Chapter 12. Aftermath. The street was quiet again. Not the silence of fear, but the kind that follows a storm, the kind that lets people breathe. Ash drifted across cracked pavement. The alien ships were gone. The shimmer barriers had collapsed. Elm Street was open, but changed. Chuck stood in his garage, staring at the map. It was covered in notes, burn marks, and blood. He didn't take it down. He added to it. A new heading. Survivors. Maria sat on the curb, sharpening her crowbar. Kids played nearby, their laughter cautious but real. The cyborg units had withdrawn, leaving behind medkits, shielding nodes, and a message. You held against the storm. Victoria met Chuck at the edge of the storm drain. Sophie was gone, extracted by Guardian, taken to a place where her signal could be studied, protected, maybe understood. But her presence lingered. The air still shimmered faintly. She was never meant to stay, Victoria said. Chuck nodded. I know. She was meant to awaken something in us. They didn't speak for a while. Then Victoria turned to leave. Her fleet was waiting. Other invasions. Other streets. Will they come back? Chuck asked. She paused. Not here. Not like this. He watched her go, boots crunching gravel, armor catching the last light of day. That night, Chuck powered up his radio one last time. Elm Street calling, he said. We're still here. And somewhere across the stars, Guardian listened. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.